changing to our future? It breaks my heart that in 2018 in Melbourne, Australia, we have to gather in protest to call out this type of racism.
I'm here today because I believe that we are all entitled to live in a country without the fear of being judged, constantly judged because of the colour of our skin.
First, I'd like to pay respect to the Indigenous people of this land, elders past and present, acknowledge that we are standing on stolen land, and I just want to share this poem. You say you want our youth to speak their truth. You say you want our youth to thrive and shine, but you don't listen to their stories. You don't wipe their tears when they appear. You don't make the time. These children are of love. They hold love, they are love. Yet with time have become the environments they absorb, the visions that they saw. Young seeds left unwatered, watch fathers fight and fly, watch mothers cry and hide. You want these children to be, you want these children to see, but they are yet to breathe. Eyes clouded with darkness, these children are in war, their minds are torn, their hearts are sore. From a place of chaos, no trust of your punch, they see blood. Eyes shut, they see blood. These children are much more. Seeds left to blossom alone, gardeners stuck in sorrow, don't know how to grow. Through this they still connect. Through this they still progress. The bundles of roses always stay close. Thorns touching. They don't mind the noise. They are strength. They are endurance. They are the purest form of gems. They must be reminded. They must be heard. They are warriors, but they don't need to fight no more. The war has played its round for you. Let it leave your head and leave room for your songs. They are the future. They are bright and they have much light. They're much more than what we've given them credit for, and I'm sure that they will soar. Born into darkness, you will find the brightest of nights. These children have much might.
Sudanese gangs caught on camera as the government shuts the door on African immigrants.
The notorious Apex gang.
Men of African appearance.
Huge gang of violent African teenagers.
It's been a night of terror across Melbourne's west with an African gang going on a shocking crime spree.
African gangs. This is not racist, it's the truth.
We had a young boy who lost his life because of the colour of his skin, as some of us believe, and yet his community was being vilified for that incident. And not only that, some media journalists went as far as referring to Liam as a gang member. That, to me, indicated that there was somehow trying to insinuate that Liam was implicit in his own killing by someone being a gang member. I've never found any evidence that Liam was a gang member.
You see this paper?
Yes, I do.
This is the paper of who owns our land. The only people that own the land are the people that were here before us. I'm sick of politicians using our migrant communities as political footballs every single time they want to look tough on law and order. I'm really, really sick of it, because that's exactly what Peter Dutton has done.
I was gonna wear casual. I was kind of afraid because I probably might get locked up before I actually even make it here. You know, every single day when I go to work, I hear something on the news. They're like, Zinga, you might need to control your people. And then I'm like, what you mean? Can you give me the remote so I can control them? You know? And then I'm like, look, there's good and bad in everyone.
Stop the lies! Stop the fear! Racist are welcome here! Stop the lies! Stop the fear! Racist are welcome here! Stop the lies! Stop the fear! Racist are welcome here!
And actually, we also have to point the finger in terms of the way that white
in Australia have been emboldened by this process over the last little while. Channel 7 actually went and gave them a platform to spread their hate, spread their lies, and spread that racism. It's not on, it's unacceptable, and we're going to have to push it back.
I see similar coverage which somehow throw the whole of African communities by branding them with terms such as African gangs. There have been articles written with titles such as African Raw 7-11. Now let's pause for a minute and think about the kind of damage that kind of coverage, that kind of language does to anyone who associates themselves as African. We're being tied to the crime of few individuals, and we're being made to pay dearly for that. We end up feeling isolated as members of the community, we end up feeling victimized, and we end up feeling shaken and afraid.
I'm gonna rip the screen door off and f***ing rip your head off, bro. You snitched off. Yeah, shut your gate, boy. What you gonna do?
Hey, get off, mate. Get off the property.
What you gonna do?
Get off.
What you gonna do, man?
Get off the property.
What?
Nothing.
This ain't your property.
Whose property is it? What is your problem? I wanna know what's your problem is that.
My problem is your boys being
what
starting on me, bro.
What boys? What boys? Can you tell me what boys?
I don't know their names.
Do you know me?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I know they're your boys.
Do I know you?
I know they're your boys, man.
What boys are you talking about?
Walking up there to Civic with knives and shit.
Who? Who are they? Why can't you ask them? Look, bro, there's no need for problem.
Most of us are law-abiding citizens of this country. We work, we pay taxes.
We are all Australians. We shouldn't be targeted just because we're brown, we're white, we're black. We are all Australians, and we should all live together in peace.
We fight. We win. We fight. We win. We fight. We win.
You came to Australia like many others, seeking peace, justice and opportunity. But you have been let down. You have been let down because the rich and the powerful and their servants in the Liberal Party and other racist groups are using your communities as a political football. And what you are experiencing is not new. We have seen this. Every cohort of migrants that has come since the start of white Australia has seen these same racist attacks, whether it was the Chinese or the Irish or the Germans or the Italians and Greeks, the Jewish, the Vietnamese, our friends from the Middle East, and now those of you that have come from the more than 50 nations of Africa. We must say, as Richard said, enough is enough.
Dutton's gang is a racist gang! Dutton's gang is a racist gang! Dutton's gang is a racist gang!
Africa is not like a suburb. It's a country with 54 countries. So to say African gang is very offensive.
I was out of Melbourne for a few weeks when Peter Dutton made his incredible comments, and I couldn't quite believe it. Like you, I looked at those comments and thought, this is not the Melbourne I know. This is not the Melbourne we love that he's describing.
Hi, law-abiding citizens. So to all my beautifully melanated kings and queens, our skin is not a crime. Let's just say that. What the heck is Apex? Apex doesn't exist the same way Australia doesn't exist.
As a union, as a national union workers, we stand together with the African community and with the Sudanese community to say we will not tolerate these racist attacks.
Workers united, we will never be defeated. Workers united, we will never be defeated. Workers united, we will never be defeated.
I'm here today because of my mother, who continues to receive racist attacks when she goes to shopping, racist abuse, being called a black dog, and who somehow have begun to accept this as the only way she can live in peace. It is unacceptable.
And isn't it ironic that Peter Dutton is telling us who we are scared of when the only person that we're scared of is Peter Dutton himself?
And I want to say to the Prime Minister,
Please stop your racism. Malcolm Turnbull, stop your racism. Peter Dutton, stop your racism. Channel 7 needs to also stop racism because they give platform. Yeah.
Good evening. If you can, put racism claims aside for a moment, because tonight we can show you the terror experienced by a Noble Park shopkeeper at the hands of an ethnic gang. They've been identified by police as predominantly Sudanese youths, caught on camera stealing and striking fear into those around them.
These security camera pictures show what Noble Park shopkeepers say they're continually subjected to. Police forced to use capsicum spray after a gang of Sudanese youths decided to take over a bottle shop, fighting the staff and stealing alcohol before officers were called.
Channel 9 had the bottle shop video too.
New footage has emerged showing Sudanese gangs terrorising shopkeepers in Noble Park. Business owners are demanding more protection from local authorities, while the federal government has announced it's shutting the door to African refugees.
And 10 led with the African gang story too.
Tonight, African gangs blamed for violence in the suburbs.
One of the girls threw a bottle of whiskey at my head. If I hadn't have ducked, it would have hit me in the head and probably knocked me out.
Each of those stories was put in the context of the government's refugee decision.
Immigration Minister Kevin Andrews has defended the government's decision to slash the intake of African refugees until at least next July.
I'm concerned that we don't create problems down the track for this group of people and for Australian society generally.
The pictures seem to be proof for those claiming Sudanese refugees were trouble. But let's look closely at just what the stories really showed. Here's the first incident on Channel 7. In these frames, none of those involved in the violence are black Africans.
That one is not Sudanese, that guy is not Sudanese, another guy is not Sudanese. I see only one Sudanese with a red T-shirt in this. And he's not doing anything.
So no example of Sudanese violence there then. The Sudanese man in the red shirt did have form. He'd been charged with assault, but as 7 News told us, he became a victim himself.
One of those featured in the video is 19-year-old Liep Goni, who died after being savagely bashed by rival gang members last week.
But no mention there that the 2 men charged with killing him are white. Let's look at the next incident, caught on the bottle shop tape about 6 minutes after the first brawl. When we froze the vision of the man sprayed by police, he didn't appear Sudanese either. The Channel 9 version made that even clearer. So we checked with the bottle shop manager there that night.
The man who was arrested on July 28 wasn't Sudanese. He was Islander.
And the Victorian police confirmed this.
The offender was a Pacific Islander. He was arrested and charged with criminal offences. The group were a mix of Pacific Islanders and Africans.
But back to Channel 7's tape of supposed Sudanese gangs caught on camera. Here's another angle of the same brawl.
After a gang of Sudanese youths decided to take over a bottle shop, fighting the staff and stealing alcohol before officers were called.
Wrong again. We already know those fighting aren't Sudanese. But 7 reporter Peter Morris suggested the apparent shoplifting was part of the same gang incident on the same night. It wasn't.
That was a separate incident on a separate day.
So at the end of 7's story, all you're left with is a Sudanese man on his own allegedly knocking off 1 bottle of booze. Perhaps that's why, while his producers were positioning the story as proof of Sudanese violence, reporter Peter Morris was writing lines that sounded like he wasn't so certain.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a gang thing or an ethnic thing. The point is people feel scared around here.
Well, it does matter, Peter, when your news bulletin says quite clearly it's about Sudanese gang violence. And what about those other claims on Channel 9 and Channel 10?
One of the girls threw a bottle of whiskey at my head. If I hadn't have ducked, it would have hit me in the head and probably knocked me out.
Is this, at last, the claimed Sudanese violence? Well, not according to the bottle shop manager who was the target of the attack.
The girl throwing whiskey was a different incident. She wasn't Sudanese, but she was part of the same general group.
And in 2007, like people have mentioned, our good friend Kevin Andrews have said that Sudanese refugees are having a hard time integrating into the community. Well, no shit. What the hell's happening? But the truth is, white Australia has actually had a hard time accepting people of colour, and they have since 1788. So what does it mean to be black in Australia? It means the only representation of people of colour are seen on the news and were labelled as thugs, criminals, and gangbangers as well, you know, African gang. And just, I guess, to make up for that lack of diversity that you don't see on TV.
Stop the lies, stop the fear!
Racists are not welcome here!
Stop the lies, stop the fear!
Racists are not welcome here!
Stop the lies, stop the fear!
Racists are not welcome here!
Stop the lies, stop the fear!
Racists are not welcome here!
So why am I here today? I have 3 lovely brothers who, because of the broad definition of what constitutes an African gang, could easily be mistaken for an African gang if they work together. Any of my brothers could have been easily substituted for Liam God.
And I'm here to tell you, to commit to you, that the Greens will always stand with you, stand beside you and stand up for you. Because multiculturalism is not just about celebrating when times are good, but it's standing up for each other when we are being unfairly treated by our politicians in our country.
About a month ago, I was accused of stealing just because I am black. And to believe that this is in a small community, far off from the city, a small community where I thought was safe.
I never thought I would find myself in a place where I can actually fight this issue, racism, this vile, this grotesque hatred attitude that grows within our political system, that grows within our news, which we're there supposed to educate ourselves, educate the young people.
I work here day and night to pay my taxes. We all work here for our great nation.
The Liberal Party and their friends roll out these tired stereotypes to keep you down, to stop you from living the rich and full lives that you came to this country for. They use these stereotypes to rob you of the dignity and respect that you deserve.
This type of politics has no place in Melbourne or Australia.
I'm here today because of my 8-month daughter. Actually, she's 10 months, but I haven't been sleeping very well. Who was born in Australia, but who, because of the colour of her skin, some people would constantly ask her, where are you from? Well, I hope she tells them that I was born at Dandenong Hospital.
And I would like to say, Peter Dutton and Malcolm Turnbull, you need to be deported.
The last words that I want to say is by Martin Demola, and it says, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. And lastly, they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
So I just want to end on a chant. It was a chant actually that was used when Milo Yiannopoulos actually came down to the Flemington Flats in December, a far-right racist from America, and I think it's an incredibly unifying chant to end on. Black, Indigenous, Arab, Asian and white, unite, unite, unite to fight the right. Black, Indigenous, Arab, Asian and white, unite, unite, unite to fight the right. Black, Indigenous, Arab, Asian and white, unite, unite, unite to fight the right. Thanks everybody, we'll see you next time.